So, assalamualaikum, good morning sa inyong lahat. So, this morning I'll be sharing with you about peace building. Since our course or descriptive title of our course is Religion and Peace Building, we have so much discussion, lecture about the different religion in the world, especially the five major religions in the world. Now, this morning I'm going to share with you about peace building. What about this peace building? Peacebuilding is a term described outside the intervention that are designed to prevent the start or resumption of violent conflict within the nation's community by creating a sustainable peace. So once again, describing the outside intervention. This is peacebuilding, and this is designed to prevent the start or the resumption of the violent conflict. So before the conflict or before the resumption of conflict, peace building should come in. It is also an activities address the root causes. Remember, activities address the root causes or potential causes of violence, create a societal expectation for a peaceful conflict resolution, and stabilize society politically and socio-economically. So addressing the root cause. In our community, so in our land in Mindanao, we know that there are conflicts. And now we are happy that it was being addressed, especially the ball. Remember the ball? Now we have the new government, which is the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao. So peace building nandoon na. Okay? So this is it. Yung tinatawag nating peace building. Then there are three approaches when we talk about peace. Take note on this according to Johan Galtong. There are three approaches. According to him, in 1976, three approaches of peace. What are those approaches? First is peace building, peacekeeping, and peacemaking. Take note ha, we know what is already peace building. What about peacekeeping as well as peacekeeping? So for us as educator, peace educator, or as peace advocate, we can be peace builders, peacemakers, and peace advocate, or peace as well as peacekeepers. So dapat nasa atin na yan lahat. Kasi kung kinukuha natin is peace, our major is peace. So do not forget these three approaches to peace. Then, what are the difference between the three? Peace building, peacekeeping, as well as peacemaking. If you want to be a peace builder, peacemaker, as well as peacekeeper. First, peacemaking involves stopping an ongoing conflict. So if there are ongoing conflict, if you want to be a peacemaker, there's a need to stop. You have to stop. So you have to involve yourself to stop on that ongoing conflict. Like what other peace advocates did, especially in the conflict in Mindanao. I would like to cite you an example like Father Mercado and the rest of the peace advocate. So they are the peacemakers. They were there, they were involved, they involved themselves in order to stop the ongoing conflict. Okay? Kung sapaga na magitna sila. Then we know already what is peace building happens before a conflict starts or once it ends. Before it starts, so you are there, peace building. Then before and once it ends, so peace building would come in if you want to be the peace builder. Okay? Then peacekeeping prevents the resumption of conflict. So once again, peacekeeping prevent the resumption of conflict. Remember, once again in Mindanao, we have the peacekeepers coming from the other country. In Malaysia, in Japan, in Turkey, and the other countries. They are the peacekeepers. They want to prevent the resumption if there is conflict in that land, in that community. Then it does not address the underlying causes of violence or work to create societal change. as peace building does. It also differs from peace building in that it only occurs after conflict ends, not before it begins. So, yun. If the conflict ends, so papasok yung peacekeepers in order to prevent the resumption. And it does not work if, sabi nga, after the conflict ends. So take note on that, the three approaches to peace. So once again, peace building, peacekeeping, and peace making. So there is a concept about this peace building. So peace building as a concept. The term itself first emerged over 30 years ago, started from 1080s through the work of Johan Galtung. Remember always this Johan Galtung, he's the peace advocate, peace educator. So once again, emerged over 30 years. Then who called for the creation of peace building structures to promote sustainable peace by addressing the root causes of violent conflict. So the intention of Galtung is to address or is to have a sustainable peace and address the so-called root causes of the violent conflict. So here in Mindanao, what are the root causes of our conflict, violent conflict? Poverty, injustices, ideology, and the rest. And supporting indigenous capacities for peace management and conflict resolution. Okay? So that's coming from Galtung. So Galtung's work emphasized on the bottom-up approach that decentralized social and economic structures amounting to a call of societal shift from the structure of coercion to the violence of the culture of peace. So from the structure of coercion from violence, then Galtung wants it to have or to become the culture of peace. And I think you have a lot already of idea when you talk about culture of peace. And with that, there are 6 issues. Then another concept coming from Jean-Paul Lederac. Take note, Jean-Paul Lederac. He was an American sociologist. John proposed a different concept of peace building as engaging grassroots. So, iba namang pananaw na yun ni Jean-Paul Lederac. For him, peace building is engaging to the grassroots, the local, the NGO, the international, other actors to create a sustainable peace process. While Galtung is addressing the root causes of conflict, violent. But here in Galtung, you have to engage to the local, to the non-government organization, the international, and the other actors to create the sustainable peace. Then he does not advocate the same degree of structural change as Galtung. So magkaiba sila. The structure from the coercion of violence kay Galtung to a culture of peace. Dito naman, we have to engage to the grassroots. Okay? So iba yung pananaw nila sa peace building. Then peace building became familiar within the United Nations Boutros-Ghali's in 1992 report, An Agenda for Peace, which defined peace building as an action to solidify peace and avoid relapse into conflict. The concept was popularized in the international community through Mr. Ghali's in 1992 report. So remember, from Galtung to over 30 years, then to Lederac, this peace building. Now, it was popularized by Mr. Ghali's report in 1992. But the proponent of this peace building is Galtung, si Johan Galtung. Then, of course, Jean-Paul Lederac. Then, peace building has expanded to include many different dimensions. Take note of the many different dimensions, such as the DDR and the rebuilding governmental, economic, and civil society institutions. So, rebuilding. Okay? From the different dimensions, rebuilding governmental, economic, and civil societies institution. So, if there are things na nasisira, so there is a need to rebuild according to this concept. Then in 2000, the Brahimi report defined it as activities undertaken on the far side of conflict to reassemble the foundations of peace and provide the tools for building on those foundations something that is more than just an absence of war. So once again, according to Brahimi, take note on this. 2000, in the year 2000, the peace building is the activities undertaken the far side of conflict to reassemble the foundations of peace. So ibig sabihin, there was already peace, then sinisira, so therefore, there is a need to reassemble the foundation of the so-called peace and provide the tools for building those foundations, something that is more than just an absence of war. That's according to Brahimi. Then regarding the development, at the 2000 World Summit, 2005 World Summit, the UN began creating peace-building architecture based on the Kofi Annan's proposal. The proposal called for three organizations. The UN Peacebuilding Commission, that was also founded 2005. The UN Building Support Office was created also in 2005. And the UN Peacebuilding Fund, founded also in 2005. So this was the development as a result of that World Summit from the UN. The Sustainable Goals Policy Committee in 2007 measures taken to reduce the risk of lapsing or relapsing into conflict by strengthening national capacities to all levels for conflict management and to lay the foundations of sustainable peace and development. Strategies must be coherent and tailored to the specific needs of the country concerned, based on the national ownership, and should comprise a carefully prioritized sequence and therefore relatively narrow set of activities aimed at achieving the above objective. So those are the idea of the Sustainable Goals Policy last 2007. Then, according to Barrett said, divides post-conflict peace building into three dimensions. So this is another idea of Barnett, in dealing with the social as well as economic issues when we talk about peace building. The first dimension for Barnett is stabilizing the post-conflict zone. So sinisira, so there is a need to establish once again yung post-conflict zone. Taking away weapons, reintegrating former combatants into a civilian society. So I think it happened also here. We have also the integration now of the former combatants to our mainstream society. Okay? I think pang second batch na ngayon na yung iba nag-integrate sa pulis at sundalo yung mga former rebels or the combatants. So that's in the first dimension, stabilizing the post-conflict zone. Then the second dimension, according to Barnett, is restoring state institution. Restoring state institution. Take note. Kasi sinira nga. So sa second dimension, there is a need of rebuilding basic facilities, transportation and communication networks, as well as utilities. At ginawa na natin ngayon, especially with the BARM now. Then developing the rule of law systems and public administration. Kaya nga nowadays in the BARM, we are still waiting for the infrastructure projects because until today they are still ongoing in drafting the law. Then building educational and health infrastructure. So yun yung hinihintay natin. Kaya nga sa DepEd ngayon sa BARM, parang linilinis pa nila yung mga dapat linisin. Then providing technical and capacity building assistance for institution. That's another activity in restoring state institution. Then creating legitimate, democratic, and accountable state institution. Once again, creating legitimate, democratic, accountable state institution. That's why the BARM now, they're always saying this moral governance. Not only a good governance, but moral governance. Para talagang may dating. Okay? Then the third dimension of peace building, according to Barnett, is dealing with social economic issues. In dealing with economic issues, so ito yung mga activities like trauma counseling. I think in Marawi, nangyari itong trauma counseling. Transitional justice and restoration. Here sa atin, mayroon din yung mga injustices na nangyari noon. Of course, binigyan din ng justice. Then, community dialogue. Nangyayari din itong community dialogue because in Mindanao, there are tribe people, the Lumads, the Moros, as well as the settlers. Then, building bridges between different communities. So, that's another. Nangyari na ba ito sa atin? I think hinahinay na nangyari. Then, increasing human rights. Increasing or decreasing? I think increasing. Sana naman. Then, gender empowerment. So, the equality. Okay, gender empowerment. Na si babae hindi na second-class citizen. Then, raising environmental awareness. Sirang-sira ng ating environment, ang ating Mother Earth. So, sana naman, aware na tayo lahat. Then, promoting economic development. I think, ongoing yan sa atin, sa BARM. Then, developing a society, a civil society and private sectors that can represent diverse interests and challenge the state peacefully. So, that's under the third dimension of peace building according to Barnett. Then, indigenous peace building practice arise from local communities. They are tailored to a local context and culture. And why? There are also ways in which how the indigenous peace itong peace building, itong ating lumad, they have their own way or strategy in order to attain the so-called peace building. There are components of peace building. Take note of the components of peace building. Create an environment that supports durable peace. Create an environment that supports durable peace. That's the first component. Then, reconcile opponents. Nangyayari yan sa atin? Yes, the BF, the military, the police, and the other men in uniform now, they are already united. There is already reconciliation. Before, nagigera sila, but now they are friends. Okay? Prevent conflict from reoccurring. How to prevent conflict para hindi bumabalik? I think, bago lang, this week, in Dato Paglas, sabi doon sa mababasa natin sa social media, ang nasa checkpoint na, mga BIFF, may putukan na. Pero buti na lang, sabi nila, wala namang casualties. Kaya nga, prevent conflict from reoccurring. So wala na sana, but here comes another group na nag-create naman ng conflict, pero sana matugunan na din ito. Then integrate civil societies, antay nangyayari yan sa atin. Then create the rule of law mechanisms, mayroon na din yan. Then address underlying structural as well as societal issues. Once again, address underlying structural and societal issues. So that's the components of peace building. Then peace building must address the functional structure. Like now in the normalization, itong ating BF at saka the military, yung mga JPST yung tawag, the Joint Task Force, yung nag-train sila, mayroon dapat silang itatayo ng mga struktura para sila na doong tatlo magsama-sama na. At saka they are at peace already. Kasi sinira man, so therefore dapat magiging functional uli. Then, the emotional conditions, kagaya ng trauma healing, kagaya yung there are ways na itong mawawala yung mga traumatic experience, seminar, counseling, etc., etc. So, kailangan i-address din yun. Then, social psychology, na siguro in the society, wala na tayong makikita na mga kabataan, mga tao may kanya-kanyang dalang baril. Pero I think, nag-i-exist pa ba ngayon? I think you can attest to that kung nag-i-exist pa sa inyong community na mayroon pa rin mga matatapang na mga tao dahil may dala-dala silang baril kahit hindi naman sila authorized. So that's in the social. Then, stability, social stability. You look at the drawing, dapat pag stable yung tao, so there's already at peace, if they're already secure in their community, so magsaya na yan sila. Then, sabi natin kanina, itong the rule of law, you look at that timbangan, it should be balanced. Okay, and it should give the so-called justice. Then, there are principles of peace building and conflict resolution. Take note of these principles of peace building and conflict resolution. All people desire to live in a world of peace and harmony. I think all of us. And I think in Mindanao, we also experience, kahit na kayo mga bata pa, we experience that there is really conflict in our land. But what we need is we want to live in a world of peace and harmony. Kaya nga tayo yung mangunguna. And why? Because ito yung ating major sa peace. We want to live in a peaceful world, in harmony with the other creatures and with the other human beings. Then according to Buddha, we are what we think. All that we are arises with our thoughts. With our thoughts, we make the world. Wow, kaganda sinabi ni Buddha, no? If you think bad, so you are bad. Kaya nga sabi, we are what we think. But if you're always thinking the positive thing, the positive vibes, so therefore, it will result to positive vibes. Kaya nga, all that we are arises with our thoughts. So dito talaga in our mind. Because we are what we think. With our thoughts, we make the world. So if we think peace, so therefore, we can make the world at peace. But kung negative dito, gusto nating violent, so therefore, according to Buddha, mangyayari dyan, we make also the world being violence. Yung violent talaga. But we are what we think. With our thoughts, we make the world. So therefore, think peace, think positive, so that we'll be able to make a peaceful world. Okay, that's for Buddha. By the way, who is Buddha? Buddha is the enlightened one. In person, he is Siddhartha Gautama is the real Buddha. He prayed, he fasted, then he was enlightened and he was called Buddha. Buddha, which means enlightened one. Okay. So when I talk about conflicts, it says that conflicts begins within us, within the individual. If you would agree, or if you would not agree, it's up to you. But according to this, conflict begins within the individual. If you look at the drawing, there is selfishness, there is unselfishness. So therefore, parang duplikara sa bilang tao. Kalahati selfish, kalahati unselfish. So that's why conflicts begins from within. I think with your experience, okay, it begins from within the individual. Then according to the preamble of the UNESCO Constitution, UNESCO meaning United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. And this preamble, this is the introductory part of their constitution. Anong sinasabi? Since wars begin in the minds of men, it is in the minds of men that the defenses of peace must be constructed. If you take note, it is more related to what Buddha said. We are what we think. So same is true with this. They are more or less similar. Since war begins in the minds of men, so it is also in the minds of men that defenses of peace must be constructed. So nangyari, tayo nag-umpisa tao, so therefore tayo din gagawa ng paraan na makamtan natin yung tinatawag nating peace. That's according to the introductory part of the Constitution sa UNESCO. Ang tao daw, there are dual purpose in man. There's the mind and we have the body. And I think we agree on that in our philosophy, mind and body relationship. Then the self-purpose, look at the arrow, punta sa whole purpose, then the whole purpose go down to the self-purpose. So ibig sabihin there's vice versa. The mind and the body, that's a dual purpose. Kailangan bang mag-away-awayan? Dapat hindi. But nag-away-away din minsan. Because the mind and the body, may interaction din yan. But remember, that's a dual purpose. Dapat di mag-away. The self-purpose goes to whole purpose, then down, the vice versa goes to the self-purpose. Now, the double cara of men, of an individual, the first is the selfishness. Ibig sabihin, selfishness, living only for oneself. Living only for oneself. So what are those under that selfishness? Una is the lust. What is lust? Term sa lust, sa amo, tinatawag yung biga. Kasi maraming mga tao na mahilig man sa biga. Daghang mga taong bigaon. Marami ding gustong magbega-bega. Okay? Tama ba? So, the lust, ibig sabihin, walang control sa kanilang pagkatao. Okay? Kita nyo, lust, walang disiplina. Mga kalalakihan, may disiplina, minsan wala. Sabi nga, mas masahol pa tayo sa aso. Sabi ni Pacman. Kasi ang aso, ang mga hayop may control, ang tao walang control when it comes to lust. Then exploitation. Anong ini-exploit? Natural resources, the environment, and of course exploitation, human exploitation. Ini-exploit natin yung hindi kauri natin ng mga tao. Sinisira natin sila. Okay? Prejudice. Itong prejudice, grabe din ito. Prejudice, biases. Ikaw Bisaya ka. Ikaw Moros ka. Ikaw lumad ka. IP ka. Ignorante ka. Wala kang alam. That's prejudice. Okay? Under that also, we discriminate each other. The biases with each other. That's under selfishness. Greed. Greed is kasakiman. When we're still young, di ba tinuturuan tayo ng mga magulang natin na magbigay ka anak sa kapatid mo, sa paryente mo. Huwag kang magiging sakim. Huwag kang dalo kung sa Cebuano pa, maramot. Okay, sakim. Pero hanggang ngayon, dala-dala pa rin yan sa iba, hindi nag-level up. Look at our politicians. Not only in our land, but this is, I think, national. It's sad to note that majority of our politicians, they are graduate from the religious schools. Pero anong nangyari? Sa school nga natin, tinuturuan tayo na honesty is the best policy. But what happened? May mga kurap. Hindi na matanapin natin nila lahat may mga kurap. Yun yung kasakipan. Kagaya sila sa mga unggoy. Kasi ang unggoy daw, pag may mahawakan na bagay, hindi talaga yan bibitaw. Sabi nila sa tsurya, kung paano daw hulihin ng unggoy, gawa kayong may buko, lagyan mo ng bukutas, at saka pagkain sa loob na tamang-tama makapasok yung kanyang kamay. Then pag mahawakan yun, hindi na yan bibitaw at mahuhuli siya. Kaya nga ngayon, there are a lot still of unggoy na hindi nag-level up. That's selfishness. Then vengeance. Ano tong vengeance? Darido. Okay, sana kayo ha, kung may karido, tanggalin yung rido na that's very unpeaceful, that's selfishness. In Islam, wala namang itinurong rido. In Saudi Arabia, pag namatayan ka, na-disgrasya man, may blood money. Dito, buong angkan idadamay kahit na wala namang alam. Pero buti na lang ngayon na hinay-hinay, na-address na itong rido. Pero nandyan, nag-i-exist pa rin yun. Kaya nag-i-exist pa rin sa society. Pero at least hinay-hinay na a-address na. Ulitin ko sa Rido, yung pagganti, walang itinuro ang Islam. Okay? Pero pinapractice only in the Philippines. Then, arrogance. Ang daming mga taong arrogante. Kahit na mali, ayaw tanggapin. Daming rason, daming dahilan. Okay, that's selfishness. Arrogante, sobrang bright siguro ito. Magrason talaga kahit na ayaw tanggapin ang mali. That's selfishness within. Kaya nga, conflict papasok yan. On the other side naman, the unselfishness, living for others. Ano-ano yung living for others? You take note. Living for others, like self-control. That's unselfishness. You know how to control yourself, to discipline yourself. Okay? Service, of course. Giving your hand to others. That's service. Okay? Fairness. Dapat wala kang pabor-pabor. Fair ka sa iyong treatment to others. Then generosity. Being generous yung you give without counting the cost. Yung nagbibigay ka na hindi naghihintay ng kapalit. Okay? Meron pa bang mga taong ganyan? Meron pa. At tayo yun mag-umpisa. Give without counting the cost. That's generosity. So the opposite of vengeance kanina is forgiveness. Kung may nagkasala man sa pamilya ninyo, pariente ninyo, huwag na kayo magpatayan. Patawarin nyo siya o sila. Kasi yung iba, itong karamihan sa Rido, 30 years, 50 years nagkarido, tapos mag-relative lang, nagpapatayan. Sabi ko nga sa iba kong estudyante, na, kung hindi niya putulin Rido, kahit na may barm, sinong maubos? Ang Bangsamoro. Kasi kayo nagpapatayan. Okay? Well, sabi nga, sige tayo dasal, sige tayo daldal about love, about God, about Allah, the most merciful, the most compassionate. Pero ikaw bilang mananampalataya, tanggalin na yung rido-rido na yan, magpatawad ka. Especially now, the Ramadan. Be at peace with your Creator and be at peace with others. Forgive each other. That's the message of Ramadan. You sacrifice. Okay? Nag-aayuno ka to be in solidarity with the poor. Then, kung nagkasala, patawarin. That's the message of the Ramadan. And of course, ang ganda. Pero yung iba hindi pa rin sinusunod. Okay? Humility. Humility. Humility comes from the Latin word humus. And humus literally means soil. And you know what is soil? In our teaching, whether we are Muslim or Christians, we believe that we came from that lupa. Okay? Galing tayo sa lupa. Kaya nga, be humble. Remember, every time we pray, kami, lumuhod kami, minsan nahalik din kami, depende, sa mga Kristiyano, dami-dami kasing posisyon sa amin. Pwede kami magdasal nakadapa, nakahalik sa lupa. The Islam, meron din kayong mga positioning in prayer. Kaya nga, yung iba dito, ang kakapal na ng kalyo, nangingitim na because of that submission to the will of God. Submission to Allah. Okay? That's humility. You are nothing in front of God. That's humility. Okay? Tandaan niyo yan. So, nakuha, that's being unselfish. Living for others. Okay? Gets natin? Sana naintindihan niyo yan. You are familiar with this. According to Mandela, the first thing is to be honest with yourself, and you can never have an impact on society if you have not changed yourself. Sabi natin, honesty is the best policy. Be honest to yourself if you want to change the society. Kasi yung iba, hindi man talaga honest. Sana tayo kayo, be a model. Kasi peace kayo. Kung face-to-face sana natin, pag exam, may magbuhay-buhay pa rin. Hindi honest, mangupya pa rin. Ito, reflection paper, hindi pa rin honest ang iba. Alam na alam ko yun. Uy, galing ito sa libro ah. Uy, galing ito sa copy-paste lang. Galing sa Mr. Google ito ah. Pero yung iba talaga, sila talagang gumawa kasi may guide naman tayo. Pero yung iba, hindi pa rin honest. Okay? Okay lang man siguro mangopya, but you have to give your own idea. Okay? Kung mangopya ka, i-quote kung saan yun galing para legal. I'm not saying na ako, as a researcher, may kinopya man din ako. May kinaka-copy paste ako, but after that, I have to write the author, I have to cite the author, then I have to give my own idea. So that's being honest. Hindi yun, kopyahin lang lahat. Wala namang sinabi kung sinong nagsabi doon. Ha, tandaan ninyo yan. If you want to change the society, change yourself. Okay? And be honest with yourself. I think malinaw yan sa atin lahat. Matamaan ka man, sana mabukol ka. Because we are peace advocate, we are peacemakers, peace builders, and peacekeepers, peace educators. Okay? Then there are sources of conflict. There are a lot of sources of conflict, but from this research, so may binigay lang na iilan. Spiritual sources of conflict. Ano itong spiritual sources of conflict? The result of original ancestors, separation from God, and from the negative influence from the evil spiritual forces. So, ito ngayon sa spiritual sources on conflict, there are times na minsan nagdududa ka sa iyong pananampalataya. Is my Creator really existing? And we have also the so-called indigenous spirituality. Kasi before the coming of our religion, before the coming of Islam as well as Christianity in the Philippines, may mga tao naman dito sa atin, especially in Mindanao, at may pananampalataya na sila, tinatawag itong indigenous spirituality. They believe na, itong kahoy na ito may Panginoon, itong bato na ito may Panginoon. Then here comes, dumating yung ating foreign religion, Islam as well as Christianity. Nauna lang Islam, that's 12th century in Mindanao. I think 13th century. Then later, dumating din Kristiyano. So may na-Islamize, may na-Christianize. Okay? So with that indigenous spirituality, napansin ninyo doon sa pag nakadaan kayo ng taviran, may malaking bato doon, tapon-tapon ng pera, ang yumayaman, mga tao din doon, tapon ka 5-5, 10 pesos, so ilang beses dumadaan ang mga sasakyan, so libo-libo din makuha, siguro mas malaki pa yung sahod, makukuha na isang araw kaysa sa akin. Pero minsan nagko-conflict, sabi, wala, hindi yung totoo. So that can be the spiritual source of conflicts between good and evil, nagkalabo-labo. Then individual sources of conflict, disunity within the individual, and the confusion of views, of values, okay? Disunity within the individuals. So kahit na tayo, minsan may conflict within the family, sa institusyon natin, o siguro tayo, wala tayong conflict, no? Especially, hindi tayo face-to-face. Kaya sabi ko, kung may nasagasaan lang, nasasagasaan ka, matamaan ka man, mabukol ka. Pag mabukol ka, learn from that. Kasi we are at peace. Okay? Then, family sources of conflict. Family dysfunction reflect succeedingly in the succeeding generation. Totoo yan. Especially itong dysfunctional family, when it comes to wala, nasa abroad si isa, naiwan ang isa. So yan, minsan itong nangaliwa si isa, so ang daming conflict na yan. Then ang mga anak hindi nasusunod. So that's family. Then national international sources of conflict. The national policies affects the generation and can lead to conflict within and between nations. Dito sa atin, national sources of conflict ngayon. Diba katatapos lang, your idol, Duterte, challenge Carpio. Wala yan si Carpio, ganyan. Hinahamon ng debate. At the end of the day, talawit pala. Ayaw. Kasi sabi ng mga advisor daw, kasi nakakasayra. Why should he stoop to the ordinary citizen now? The dating justice. Kay Supreme Chief Justice. Hindi dapat. So, ang humamon karon palagi nangahamon si Roque, si Sister. Sabi, puro ito mga bayot, mang-challenge, tapos, umatras. Okay? Minsan, tayo, as ordinary citizen, ayaw din nating magpuna. Kasi magpuna ka ni Duterte, kasuhan ka kaagad. Okay? murahin mo sa Duterte, kasuhan ka kaagad, ano dapat siya lang daw may karapatan magmura. Tama ba yun? Okay, tingnan, tama ba yun? Kayo magtingin kayo as peace advocate. Tama ba yun? Siya lang may karapatan magmura? Gusto niyang murahin lahat? Dilima, Robredo, Carpio, even the ordinary citizens, mga kababaihan. So, national within, conflict yan within national. Then what about international? Ngayon, China. So, other countries involved na. Anong ginagawa ni Duterte? Ito ngayon sinumpisahan sa pag-challenge na ni Carpio. Dahil sa dating administrasyon Aquino, sila nagpatayo doon, sila binintan ng Pilipinas. In fairness naman ni Pinoy, may nanalo tayo sa International Tribunal. So ngayon, pag China pag-usapan, anong ginagawa sa idol ninyo? Bayot, ayaw magsalita. Wala tayong kakayahan. Hindi naman gera ang ating pinupunta doon. Okay? Kaya nga, I lied. Palagi siya, parang si Miriam, I lied. Diba, nung nagkumpanya siya, I will go there with the US ship, bringing the flag of the Philippines. Punta ako doon sa Scarborough Shoal. So what happened? Dinideny. Hindi ko yung sinabi. Hindi ako maghanap ng away. Bakit pala ang Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, inaangkin man din yun ng China, ang kanilang kadagatan doon, karagatan nila. Pero bakit sa atin wala tayong masabi? Pansin ninyo? Sa madaling salita, duwag, bayot. Pero hindi atin-atin, kahit na marinig mo ito sa iba, kasuhan ka kaagad. Kaya nasaan ang ustisya? Sila manggaling mabuli, pero hindi magpabuli. Kasi sila lang ang bright. May isa nga akong kasama na teacher, yung nagdasal siya, si Duterte, hindi pumunta sa Marawi, tapos may linagay doon na isang pagkain. Kinasuhan ang teacher, I think nabilanggo. Kasi bawal daw iganon ang presidente. But well, national as well as international sources of conflict. And there are a lot. International, another example. Ayaw man ni Duterte ang Amerika. Di ba? First na nation, State of the Nation address niya. Pero may nilagdaan sila. Kaya nga, kung in case man pagpunta doon sa mga Pinoy doon sa ating karagatan, paggirahin yun ng China, hindi basta-basta din siya, kaya the America is also there. Tutulong yan sa atin kasi may kasunduan. So that's more on the international sources of conflict. What about this pandemic now? International, global, saan galing? Diba, galing China, made in China, conflict. Okay? Sinovac, 50% efficacy, mas mahal, yun yung kinuha sa Pilipinas. Kasi malaking utang na loob sa China. Ang 90% efficacy, konti lang kinukuha. Sources of conflict. Kuha natin. So that's the point there. And there are a lot of sources of conflict, pero ito lang nabanggit dito. Then, sinasabi we have individual choice to resolve or repeat the past conflict. Nasa sa atin na, if you want to repeat or to resolve, or if you want to look at the future, kaya nga each person passes on either a problem or a solution. So it's up to us. Nasa tao talaga. It's our choice. If you want to go on, if you want to forget the past and think of the future, at saka doon na talaga tayo sa peace. Then the question, does fighting resolve conflict? Fighting can be necessary for self-defense and to defend the weak. Pwede yun. Okay? But fighting does not resolve conflict. Defeating an enemy does not answer his grievances or end his hatred. The defeated are tempted to seek revenge. Yan ang problema. Like, for example, in Marawi, the ISIS, the Maute group, would you think na wala na sila? Nandyan pa rin yan. Nandyan pa rin yan. Because fighting does not resolve conflict. Okay? Then, the basis of conflict resolution, we have take note that the state of harmony and the state of conflict. So before nasa baba tayo, if you want to restore that one, we have to go to state of harmony. But it's up to us, it's our choice kung babalik ka pa rin doon sa, mawala pa rin babalik doon sa state of conflict. Kaya nga, indemnity conditions effort to reverse the process by which the original harmony was lost. So, it's still our choice. From that state of conflict, dapat to the state of harmony. So, it depends to us kung babalik yon. Pero sana hindi niyan babalik yun, especially here in Mindanao. Kasi kawawa ang future generation. Kawawa tayo. Kayo ngayon, mga bata pa. Then, there is a need to restore the so-called conflict. From selfishness, from wrong, at saka broken relationship, dapat lahat mag-level up, mag-transcend na to unselfishness, from wrong to right, and from broken relationship to a loving relationship. Madali lang ito sabihin pero mahirap gawin. But it should start from us. Peacemaker, peace builder, peace educator, peacekeepers. Gets? Sige. Then there are steps in conflict resolution. The self-reflection or reorientation. Consider how one might have dealt with the problem different. Take responsibility for one's contribution to the conflict. So, kailangan pag-aralan mo, i-reorient mo, magnilay ka. Okay, magnilay ka. Yun yung unang step para ma-resolve yung tinatawag nating alitan or conflict. Or lido sa ibang term. Then according to Martin Luther King, familiar with Martin Luther King? We never get rid of an enemy by meeting hate with hate. We get rid of an enemy by getting rid of enmity. Kaya nga, in short, sabi nga, you cannot correct a mistake with another mistake. Hindi man yan kagaya sa mathematics, negative times negative equals positive. Hindi man ganon ang formula. Okay, we never get rid of an enemy by meeting hate with hate. Okay? Then step 2, paano maresolba ang conflict? Reversal and restitution. Address whatever caused the other to feel hurt and avoid violated. Open to efforts to reconcile, seek to correct the injustices. Reversal. For example, a basic example, i-reverse mo ba? Parang reverse psychology. One time, drive ako ng motorsiklo dito sa may Indio sa creek. So, alam niyo yung creek dyan, kung saan bumibili ng mga pagkain. Binunggo ako ng elf. Kasama ko yung asawa ko. Buti na lang nakatalon yung asawa ko. Then, ako yung natumba. Ako yung nagkasugat sa paa. Bumaba yung driver. Siya pang galit. Lahat-lahat na. Siyempre, for the sake of peace, tahimik lang ako. Pero sugatan ng paa ko. Sabi ko, that's pwede ba tumahimik ka? Mahinahon na pagkasabi. Lahat-lahat. Ninalait pa ako. Sabi ko sa asawa ko, tawagan mo yung kinakapatid natin na pulis. Agad-agad dumating. Isang mobile. Then, pagdating, para siyang basang sisiw. Parang basang sisiw. Pero yung una, pagdating namin sa presinto, bakit ikaw pa matapang? Kung ikaw kaya yun nasa kalagayan ko, ako pa yung sugatan, sira pa yung motor ko, anong gagawin mo? Tumahimik siya. Kita mo yung reversal and restitution. So para bang, if you were in my shoes, anong maramdaman mo? Okay, hindi ka agad nga mag-judge, hindi ka agad na husgahan mo yung tao. Okay? Another thing, example of reversal. Diyan sa may Charlie Bakery, papasok ng Indio yung Charlie Bakery yan sa Indio Avenue. Tinagay ko yung motor ko, binunggo. Hindi, sira yung footrest sa motor. Then, pinuntahan ko. Galit na galit sa akin. Wrong parking, kasalanan mo, ganito. Sabi ko sa reverse, that's ganito na lang. Paayos mo yung motor ko, iwan mo yung susi ng motor mo. Kay tricycle. Dito man yun, bahay to ng kapitan, dito din ako nagtira, sabi ko sa kanya. Then, galit na galit talaga siya. Galit na galit. Sabi ko, binaliktad ko. That's sa'yo kaya yung motor. Kung sa'yo yan, binangga ko. Anong maramdaman mo? Bakit ikaw kayo ang galit? Galit pa rin siya. Ayaw ko. Sabi ko, bayaran mo kasi sinira mo man yan. Tawagan ko ang may-ari sa motor na pagdating sa may-ari ng motor, kabro ko man. Okay? Yung kabro, kakaranso ba? Pareho kaming karanso, kilala ko. Ay, driver mo kasi Datsun ganito. Pinagalitan siya. Parang basang sisiw. Kaya may mga tao talaga na kailangan mo i-reverse, pero yung iba talaga, may mga astig talaga. Kaya nga yung minsan, ang conflict, hindi na-resolve. Next, reconciliation and renewal. Medyo maganda itong third step. Give up the claim for retaliation. So, yan, wala na. Hindi ka na mag-retaliate, hindi ka na magganti. Forgive and be open to receive forgiveness. Then resolve and help others to change. Then foster goodwill. So, yan, pinakita. Gusto mong makipag-reconcile. So, wala na dapat. Kalimutan mo na yung pagganti mo. So, there are actions that lead to peace. Take note. Sinabi ko na ito sa inyo. Humility. You have to admit. Admitting not always being right. Being open to learn from others. So, be humble. Then, generous. Giving beyond inconvenience and service. Alam na natin di ito. Then, the greatest act of love, winning over one's enemy, is giving even to those who have done one harm. So, medyo mahirap ito. Giving even to those who have done one harm. Nasaktan ka man, pero mag-move on ka na. Then, converts the enemy into a friend. Ang ganda sana yan. Then, reverses ancient patterns, abuses, and revenge. Then, according to Isa, in his gospel, I say to you, love your enemies, and I pray for those who curse you, do good to those who hate you, and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be sons and daughters of your Father. At saka may dagdag pa ito, pag sinampal ka sa kabila, ipasampal mo yung kabila. Pag tinapunan ka ng bato, tapunan mo ng tinapay. So that's all about love. Madaling sabihin para mahirap gawin yan. But here in our land, I think sa amin, especially the Catholics, may 4 na kaming pari na pinatay. Gumanti ba kami? Wala. We love them, we pray for them because they do not know what they are doing. I don't know bakit pinatay yung obispo namin in Hulo at 3 kaparian namin. Sa Bukidnon, mayroon ding pinatay na mga pari namin. But for us, you have to love those people. Pray for those who hate you and to persecute you. Yun yung turo namin. Okay? In Islam, mayroon din. According to Hadith, My Lord, who is the greatest of thy servants in thy estimation? Ang sagot, the one who forgives when he is in position of power. Ayun. Forgiveness. Malinaw ito sa hadith. Forgiveness. Magpatawad ka. Especially if you are the authority. If you want to be great servant of God, so magpatawad ka. Malinaw pala ito, pero yung iba ayaw magpatawad. Pag matamaan yung maratabat hanggang kamatayan na yan. Ayun yung malaking problema. Pero nasa tao, hindi turo yan ng Islam. Ang ganda, religion of peace is Islam. Pero ang mga mananampalataya ay one. Bakit hindi ito nasunod? Forgive. The one who forgives when he is in the position of power. Yun yung the great servant of God. Okay, malinaw yan sa atin. Kaya nga sa atin, be humble at marunong dapat tayong magpatawad. We are peacemakers, builders, keepers. We are educator, we are peace advocate. Tandaan ninyo yan. Then, what is needed? Leadership centered on true love. And all of us, dapat tayo mga ambassadors for peace. True love dapat. Naalala siguro ito si Mutya. Anong sinabi ni Mutya? Yung sa awitin na dapat, sana'y pag-ibig na lang ang isipin ng bawat isa sa mundo. Sana'y wala ng away, wala ng gulo, wala ng alitan. Pagmamahalang dapat. If we want to be an ambassadors for peace. Then, may mga attitude of an ambassadors of peace. Tingnan nyo ito. Show concern of both sides. Affirm the value of both sides. Gain trust from both sides that each is being treated fairly. Aim for win-win outcome. Then, guide both sides beyond blame and accusation. Itong win-win outcome na walang nanalo, walang natalo, kundi nanalo ang dalawang panig kung may conflict man. Then sa mediation naman towards the offender, especially tayo, kung mag-mediate tayo, help the offender accept the responsibility, then encourage admission of wrong, then help offender accept the challenge of reconciliation, then avoid labeling and blaming, then praise and offer a second chance. So, yun yung dapat gawin natin. Then, ang skills naman towards the offended, then help the offended forgive and release grudges. Yung nasaktan ba? Help the offended recognize his own fault. So, may mali din siya. Then, help the offended accept an apology. Kung nanghingi ng sorry, tanggapin na. So, wag nang mag-retaliate, wag nang gumanti. Then, foster harmony and friendship with the offender. Then, in promoting peace and reconciliation, ito na yung mga ginagawa. May service program, may sports competition, cultural program, dialogue between religions. May subject kayo about dialogue between religions. Saka sa atin, yung mga pinapakita ko sa inyo at saka yung mga sinisend ko sa inyo na documentary, that's dialogue between religions. Saka may idagdag pa ako dyan. Kasi that's one way of promoting peace and reconciliation. Then women as peacemakers. Kasi iba mag-isip itong kababaihan. Tandaan ninyo yan in promoting peace and reconciliation. Okay? Sana ngayon at the end of this course, huwag talagang kalimutan, especially dialogue between religions. Lahat ng mga sinisend ko na article, mga lecture natin, tsaka yung mga panel, yung discussions na binibigay ko sa inyo, na sana naman natututo tayo doon. Yun bang sabi ko, broaden your horizon as peace educator. Kasi ikaw, halimbawa ako, Christian, alam ko, this is my religion, this is one way that I will go to heaven. Same is true with you. At wag mong pakialaman yung iba because they have also the other religion. Kasi yung iba kasi, ang mag-judge agad ba? Kayo mga Kristiyano, ganito, punta kayo sa impyerno kasi kumakain kayo ng baboy. Who are you to judge me? Sabi ko nga, our God is the most merciful and the most compassionate God. Pero bakit tayo mag-judge sa God? Anong klaseng religion? Ano palang klaseng God? Ano kang klaseng mananampalataya? Sana na open na yung pag-iisip natin dito, especially with this course. Kasi peace dapat maiba. Iba na yung mentality natin. Peace dapat. Hindi yung may kinikilingan ka, dapat broaden your horizon, lawakan ang ating pag-iisip. So, tandaan ninyo yan if you want to promote peace and reconciliation. Anong sabi ni Mahatma Gandhi? When I despair, I remember that all through history, the ways, the truth and love have always won. So, truth and love had always won, according to Gandhi. Si Sadat naman, sabi niya, any life that is lost in war is a human life. Be it an Arab or Israeli, innocent children who are deprived of the care and compassion of their parents are ours. They are ours, be they living in Arab or in a Israeli land. Kasi away-away ng Israel at saka yung sa Arab. Until today, away-away pa rin na. Israel at saka yung Palestinian ngayon, yung mga linulusob sila sa mosque, matagal na alitan yan. That's a long history. May alitan talaga yan sila. Pero sana mawala na yun. Kung ano mo yung sabi ni sila, any life that is lost in war is a human life. Be it an Arab or an Israeli. Innocent children who are deprived of the care and compassion of their parents are ours. They are ours. May they be living an Arab or an Israeli land. Then, according, I think, Secretary General ito sa UN, the reason why God does not punish an enemy is that He is thinking of an enemy's parents, wife, and children who all love Him. When you understand this, when you understand that the heart of God, could you take revenge of your enemy? So, ang bigat. And with that, I'd like to say thank you, and I hope you learn about peace building. I've learned about conflict and reconciliation. So, this will be part of your subject, especially on peace building, the part of peace building. Then, from this lesson, another thing, of course, another requirement, a simple requirement, please write for 15 points a reflection paper about peace building. So, write a reflection paper about peace building. Pero once again, be honest. Iwasan na yun kasi alam ko sa every time mag-check ako, galing man ito sa article, galing ito sa kay Mr. Google. So, wag na. Okay lang man kung galing doon. I'm not saying pwede ka naman mangopya, but cite kung saan galing, then give your own idea. Hindi ako against dyan. Pero yung iba, kopya lang ito lahat, malaman man natin yon. So be honest. And with that, I'd like to say thank you. God bless you all. Then advance sa mga kapatid naming mga Muslim, malapit na, advance sa inyong pagtatapos ng the holy month of Ramadan. So, God bless you all. Dalaygon ang Diyos.